I'm Kevin Maguire, and welcome to the Daily Mirror's election show Pole Position. Every evening, Monday to Thursday, 6 p.m. for 15 minutes, we'll discuss what is important in this campaign. Our special guest tonight is Wrack, TUC President and General Secretary of the Fire Brigades Union. So, coming up on Pole Position, Starmer, workers' right. Will he deliver? Frank Hester, accused of racism, likes the Tory party so much he's given it 15 million and bought it. And veterans, do we do enough for them every day, or is it just once a year? So welcome to Pole Position, and we have, as I said, Wrack, TUC President, General Secretary of the Fire Brigades Union, and a key figure in negotiations over the package of workers' rights and trade union reforms that will or will not be in Labour's manifesto, which is published next week. And the key meeting, called Clause 5 in the Labour Constitution, is on Friday. Hello, Matt.
Hi, good evening, Kevin. Hi, everyone.
Now, Matt, workers' rights, the reforms, the changes were considered the jewel in Labour's crown. Are they still glittering?
Well, I think they are going to be, and I think, as you say, it's absolutely vital for us as a trade union. We represent firefighters, but affiliated unions to the Labour Party, representing workers in a whole number of industry sectors, public services. And we've been clobbered by the law for many, many years, decades, in fact. And this is a chance to start to roll back that to some degree and to give workers better rights at work and to give workers better rights to organise through their trade union. And for us, a unionised workplace is a safer workplace, a better workplace with better pay, conditions, pensions and so on. And that's got to be to the benefit of millions of working people. So it's a key issue for the election, and I think needs to be made centre stage for Labour. And there's always going to be a debate. You know, there's going to be a debate. There's going to be pushback from some business interests. And our job as the affiliated Labour unions is to say, no, we want this delivered in full. This has been discussed over 2 or 3 years now. It's a fantastic opportunity, and Labour now needs to deliver it.
There were fears, and there's been speculation, signs that under pressure from the Tories and also business, championed by Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, Johnny Reynolds, the Shadow Business Secretary, there was some rolling back in the reforms. And for instance, instead of ending 0 hours contracts, to end exploitative 0 hours contracts. Are you still happy?
Look, I think there's always going to be a debate on some of that detail, and what's in a policy document when you write that, and that's been written over the past couple of years, and then how you turn that into legislation is going to be a big further debate. And our job as unions is to make sure those policies are turned into the best possible bit of legislation. So actually, I'm not overly worried. I think that the unions had a meeting. It was publicised with Keir Starmer 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think we were very firm, we were very united, and we came out of that very positive about what would then end up in the manifesto. Now we'll go to a meeting on the manifesto, and again we might have some disagreements. That's not surprising, because as you say, the Tories are likely to attack this. Some elements of business are, the right-wing press are. So I don't think the union should be under any illusion that that's not going to happen. Obviously, that's going to happen. And our job is just we're used to having battles and campaigns. And our job is to just carry that on into this discussion. And then during the campaign, and then, of course, after the election, where we'll be saying to a new government, we want these policies implemented.
And Matt, you're a professional negotiator, as are your colleagues who've been in affiliated trade unions. You're Steve Turner at Unite, Dave Ward at the Communication Workers Union, Mick Whelan has left the train drivers. You thought you had a deal. Has that deal stuck?
Look, I think by and large the deal will be stuck. Some of the debates are likely to be around particular wording and phrasing and so on. But again, it doesn't particularly overly concern me. We will be fighting to get the trade union agenda into that manifesto. And then most importantly, after the election, we'll be fighting to make sure that that's turned into strong legislation. And the unions have already been doing work on that in advance of the election. So I think we're prepared for that. And the pushback doesn't necessarily surprise us at all. We'll see what comes out in the next couple of days in the Labour manifesto. But I would say to Labour, one is a vote winner, and Keir Starmer's acknowledged that in the Rutherglen by-election, for example. He acknowledged very clearly that on the doorstep with people, when you say that you've got a chance of improving people's lives at work, that was a vote winner. I think it would be, frankly, a bit daft of them to backtrack on a vote-winning policy simply because a few people in the right-wing press or some elements of business don't like it. It's going to win tens of thousands, possibly millions of votes. The amount of time that people are spending their lives at work is huge, and work should be a place of dignity and respect and decent pay and decent conditions. And that's what this debate is about.
Yeah. Matt, you can give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you like, but are you happy on 0 hours contracts?
Look, you're going to keep pushing on this.
I am. I'm going to come on to rights from day one in a moment. And
yeah, look, we'll see tomorrow. We'll see over the next couple of days the detail of it. But I can assure you that the trade unions are going to keep pushing for the trade union agenda in that discussion over the next couple of days with Labour. We may not be happy on everything. But that's not the end of the debate. When Labour is in government, as looks increasingly likely, we will be pushing an agenda for working people, and we'll be holding Labour's feet to the fire if necessary. If that's what we have to do as trade, whether a union's affiliated to the Labour Party or not, they will all be demanding and insisting that this opportunity of a lifetime to improve working lives is delivered. So I'm not going to get caught up in individual bits of it. Our job is to deliver that as much as we can.
Mm-hmm. Because the Conservative Party has put increasingly tighter shackles on trade unions. For instance, we know balloting. They chose a prime minister, imposed a prime minister on the country, Liz Truss, with electronic balloting. Except you've got to do postal balloting.
That's a really good point, Kevin. So when we ballot, and we occasionally have to ballot for industrial action, unfortunately. And for example, we had a ballot for industrial action last year. We didn't actually take that action in the end. We negotiated a settlement, and I'm very pleased we did. But when we do so, we have to do it by post. And a lot of our members, many people's lives are lived, the people pay their bills, all sorts of things online. And people say, well, why can't I vote online? That's because of the law. So is that one simple reform, which is in the New Deal for workers, of being able to vote online and safely in the workplace, would transform that, and I think make the whole process more democratic. And that would be a fantastic achievement. That one thing, which is just part of a much bigger picture. So yeah, that would be a big improvement for working people who are members of trade unions.
Yeah. An incoming Labour government, if there is one, all the polls suggest there will be, but it's not over until the votes are cast and counted, will inherit a train driver's dispute, will inherit a junior doctor's dispute. Firefighters were one of the big disputes of the last Labour government. How do you think it's going to play out if money is tight? There's going to be pressure to improve public services from your good health, and also improve the pay and the living conditions of people in the public services, which have been cut and squeezed in recent years. How do you characterize that relationship? Because the Tory parties are going to say, oh, Britain's going to get like France with lots of industrial action. I smile a bit on that, given all the industrial action we've had on other Conservatives. And bits of France I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind the higher living standards. I wouldn't mind the higher productivity. I wouldn't mind the earlier retirement. They're all good things. But it's going to be tricky, isn't it, for you as a General Secretary of an affiliated trade union in the Labour Party when you're dealing with the Labour government, Labour ministers, Labour Prime Minister?
Well, yeah, no, on France, I do occasionally hear some workers, including in my own union, say we should be a bit more like France in different ways, lifestyle, but also standing up for ourselves occasionally. And as you say, the 2022, 2023, we saw a huge strike wave because of years of anger over falling pay. the truth is, if you look at pay in the British economy, it's stagnated actually since 2008, hasn't really recovered since the great banking crisis of 2007, 2008. That's pretty staggering. And then you've had an unprecedented attack on public sector pay since 2010 under this government with its different prime ministers. So there is a lot of pent up anger and frustration, and then the cost of living crisis on top of that, all on the back of COVID, where many of the workers who ended up taking industrial action just a couple of years earlier were called heroes and key workers and were clapped every week by the prime minister and others, only to be told afterwards to tighten their belts. So there is a lot of anger, and people need to be able to pay their bills and the mortgages and the rent and so on. And that's what led to that wave of industrial action. So I do think Labour has got to address that. And they need to think very carefully about that. People want a government that's going to transform their lives. And part of transforming people's lives is being able to pay the bills. So I think there will be an expectation about addressing pay. That may not all happen at once, but I think there will be expectations raised. And I think it's something that Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are going to have to think very carefully about, because certainly our job as trade unionists is to get a better deal for our members. But actually, I want to see better living standards for all working people. And that's got to be part of the agenda after this election.
Now, Frank Hester, the Tory donor, his living standards must be incredibly high, because he's donated another 5 million on top of the previous 10 million. Now, he is the IT entrepreneur, partly rich on public contracts, who said of Diane Abbott he wanted to shoot her, and he made him hate all black women. What does it tell us? I mean, you've got a long history, a long proud history as an individual in a trade union, campaigning against racism. What do you think it tells us that the Conservatives have taken so much money, about 40% of what they will spend in this election, from an individual like that?
Well, I think, first of all, the words that were used were absolutely shocking, and it's staggering that people in this day and age think they can get away with comments like that. And then there is as you say, the financial relationship with the Conservative Party. I think a lot of people thought that money should have been given back, but clearly the Tories wanted a huge war chest, and they'll take money, it seems, off anyone. I think that's absolutely shocking. It's an indictment of the influence of ultra-rich people in British politics. And presumably somebody is going to invest that level of personal wealth into a political party because they think they are getting something back out of that. And that's pretty shocking. So I think there's probably a lot of outrage out there, and it's what brings politics into disrepute, I think. Comments like that, and then the influence that somebody like that has on a political party and on this forthcoming election.
And Matt, it's the 6th of June, 80th commemoration of D-Day. We've got to talk about it. You have a lot of veterans in your service. A lot of them. I don't know. Is it a fifth of firefighters or a quarter used to be in the forces? Now, presumably they're kind of looked after and engaged, but there are terrible levels of homelessness and disproportionate number of veterans in prison. Do you think we need to look after them every day and not just once a year on a commemoration?
Yeah, no, the fire service is actually built on naval traditions. So at one point, before my time, but many people joining the fire service were recruited directly from mainly the Royal Navy, but the Merchant Navy a bit less. But there are lots of veterans from all armed forces in the fire and rescue service. Perhaps a bit less than it was when I joined the fire service, but nevertheless a significant proportion. So we have, and it is a uniformed service. So there's a lot of links and understanding with the armed forces. And yeah, I think it is shocking. It clearly we should remember the sacrifice that people made in previous conflicts, and D-Day in particular, as we've just been commemorating. But then I think it's a sad indictment of our society that actually we do not look after veterans properly. That there should, the issue of housing, the issue of mental health, the issue of employment and training and so on, that should be built into what government is delivering and what local authorities are delivering. And sadly, that's not the case. So I think that is something that needs to be addressed. It should be, we saw the party leaders engaged in those commemorations. Well, they need to actually do something about it and make sure that today's veterans, the people who are coming out of the forces today or have been seen conflicts of recent years, are looked after. And I think that would be widely supported.
Yeah, hear. Matt, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'm going to try and lure you back to pole position after the manifesto by Labour is published. I think it's next Thursday, I think. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for everybody watching. We'll be back on Monday, 6 p.m, same time, same place on pole position. Thank you.
Thanks.